Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. I want to say hello to all the people that are just filing into the chat as we begin Wednesday's episode, which if you are a longtime fan and watcher of the Pewter Report podcast, you know this is when we preview the Bucs' next game. If you're a first-time watcher or listener, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com. His name is, well, those are his initials. His name is Scott Reynolds. And Scott, it's still the regular season, but it is the playoffs for Bucs versus Falcons. More on the Bucs side of things than Atlanta's, but it's do or die for the Bucs this week.
It really is. I mean, this is a game that I'm pretty excited to see because it was a close game back in Week 7. The Buccaneers should have won that. They had opportunities to. At the same time, you can look at this objectively and say, well, if not for 3 red zone fumbles by Desmond Ridder, including 2 at the goal line, this could have been a blowout for the Atlanta Falcons on their side of things. So I think both teams have so much to play for. In my opinion, I think this is an elimination game for one of these coaches. If Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers lose this game, they're essentially out of it. They're not mathematically out of it, but they're going to be 3 games back behind the Atlanta Falcons and down 2 games in the division. Their margin for error, they pretty much have to win out and then hope for several Atlanta losses for them to regain the NFC South lead. I don't see them making the playoffs without winning the NFC South division. So, and the same thing could be said too of the Falcons, Matt. I mean, Atlanta is known for choking, right? I mean, not
28-3, baby.
28-3, but also how many times have we seen the Falcon at the end of games and just choke and falcon it up? And so, and you look at the last 2 years with Arthur Smith as the head coach, both teams that he has presided over were 7-10. So there's been no progress there. They have to make some progress this year. They're on the cusp of it. A win would get them back to 7 wins this year with the 7-6 record. They would have kind of a mini stranglehold over the NFC South right now, but a loss, and all of a sudden doubt creeps in again, right? Does Arthur Smith have what it takes to get this team over the hump? Are the Falcons going to choke down the stretch and lose a division in which they've had the lead on for a minute now? So a lot's at stake in this game, not just this year, but for these franchises going forward, because there could be some head coaching turnover here as a result of the outcome of this game.
Yeah, for the wrestling fans watching this show, this is a loser leaves town match between both head coaches. And we talked everything about Todd Bowles, why he would get fired if he gets let go at the end of the season. But for the Falcons side of things, I mean, they brought in Arthur Smith. He's an offensive guy. He was the offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans. On paper, there is a lot to like about the Falcons team, especially on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's Bijan Robinson, who they drafted this year, who's extremely excited, Algier, who was a 1,000-yard rusher last season, Drake London, who's a very talented wide receiver, Kyle Pitts at tight end. Their backup tight end is very serviceable as well. And they poured a lot of money on the defensive side of the football. And obviously they got a stud player at safe, Jesse Bates, who is second in Pro Bowl voting, where unbeknownst to me, I can't even believe I'm saying this out loud, Antoine Winfield Jr. is nowhere to be found on the Pro Bowl voting at the moment. He's not even in the top 10, but I digress. So, Arthur Smith has really been given everything in front of him for this team to be successful. And kind of like what you said, the Falcons are going to Falcon. They've had a lot of winnable games, Scott. I know they've won 2 in a row, but let's face it, their last 2 wins, they beat the New York Jets, who are going back to Zach Wilson as their quarterback. So their offense is by far the worst offense in the league. And the Falcons won that game 13-8 in a rainy, disgusting game. The one before that, they beat the Saints 24-15, but the NFC South is going to do its thing and just implode from within. So does it even count as a big win if you beat someone from the NFC South when everyone else is terrible? Right before that, before the bye week, they had 3 losses in a row against the Tennessee Titans, who the Bucs beat convincingly.
Yeah, that's right.
The Vikings, who have Josh Dobbs as their quarterback. That was the infamous game when Dobbs was not even there for a full week, and he came in and beat the Falcons. And then they lost to the Arizona Cardinals, who are better with Kyler Murray, but they're still a 3-win football team. So as much as you want to say, the Falcons defense has improved as of late and whatever statistics you want to look at, you watch those games. The Falcons don't look like a menacing team by any means, but on the same side of it, we know how the Bucs can get in their own way and can look so flashy and they've turned the corner at times, and then the next minute, bam, they shoot themselves in the foot. There's a turnover, there's a penalty, and silly mistakes. So something has to give in this game. I'm just not quite exactly sure if it's the Falcons falconing or the Bucs turning into the Yucks.
No, I'm with you, Matt. And I think that both of these head coaches have got their own issues, right, in terms of game management, creating momentum. I will say I think Arthur Smith and the offense the last time did a much better job against Tampa Bay's run defense. They really, and I have to say this, Desmond Ridder, for his faults, he's beaten Tampa Bay in his last 2 outings, right? I mean, the Week 18 game where Todd Bowles elected to pull his starters, and probably wisely so, because Tom Brady was playing behind a banged up offensive line at the time. They lost Robert Hainsey in the game, and Nick Leverett also got hurt. So, but Ridder really came to life in the second half. Algier ran for 100 yards, ended up with 1,000 yards on the season after a big game against Tampa Bay. And they got that late season win. They gave the Buccaneers an 8-9 record rather than a 9-8 record. And then he comes to Tampa and does it again. He's not a great quarterback, but he is 2-0 against Todd Bowles. And as much mastery as Bowles has over the New Orleans Saints, he doesn't really have that against the Atlanta Falcons. And this is going to be kind of a bit of a heavyweight fight here. I don't know which team I'm going to pick for this game, because you and I watched the Falcons Jets game before the Bucs played. I wasn't terribly impressed with how Atlanta was handling the Jets. I mean, a 13-8 win. I'm not saying that they can't win, but it wasn't terribly impressive. At the same time, you could say the same thing about Tampa Bay's 3-point win over a 1-win team in Carolina. So I don't know. This might be the battle of the sucks on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of throw both games for the Bucs and the Falcons, who they played last week. I kind of throw that out the window because the Jets defense is still an extremely formidable defense. They got their 3rd safety of the season against the Falcons. I don't think any other team has more than one. So, the Jets defense is still very stout. And as we saw in the Bucs-Panthers game, the Panthers are the worst team in football. Their offense isn't going anywhere. And the weather was horrible, and it was horrible in New Jersey as well for Falcons versus Jets. So I kind of take those 2 games and throw it out the window, because in a perfect world, I would love to look at the fact that the Bucs pass rush was really able to get after the quarterback, and multiple players had sacks, and they were great in the passing game. I mean, outside of one throw down the field to DJ Chark against Carlton Davis, and Carlton had a great game. Outside of that, the Bucs didn't really allow the big play at all. But how much stock can I put into that, given all the circumstances that we had already talked about? When you look at everything else the Bucs have done in the recent weeks before that leads you to tell, who's to say the Bucs won't just fall on their faces again? Whether it was allowing so many rushing yards to Indy and then letting Gardner Minshew kind of throw the ball down the field, or that was the second of a back-to-back 27-point outing that the defense was giving up. So which team really truly finds their identity, I don't think we will really know until the opening kickoff.
I know it's going to be an exciting game. Win or lose, the Buccaneers always make it interesting, right? I mean, they could be a maddening team. I feel for you, Pewter people that root for this team. It's maddening to cover. We get it from our side of things, but it's never boring. This is never a non-interesting team to cover. There's always some kind of drama, whether it's the Tom Brady divorce thing last year, whether it's been injury-filled seasons.
Antonio Brown just leaving.
Yes.
Just peace out.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Bucs, win or lose, are never dull. So there's that. Long Lost Blazer has a question here. 49ers cut a running back. Did the Bucs put in a claim? Interesting note about this. The reason why I'm kind of highlighting this, the running back that was released by the 49ers, Ty Davis Price, who was a running back at LSU, 3rd-round pick in 2022. So that's kind of a high pick that was released. Didn't really have much in the way of statistics over the last 2 years. Played in 6 games as a rookie. Ran for 99 yards and no touchdowns, averaging 2.9 yards a carry. Really is a seldom used backup. This year had 6 carries for 21 yards, 3.5. I was not terribly high on him coming out of LSU. To me, kind of a Keyshawn Vaughn-ish type player, so I don't think there's much interest. But the interesting thing is the reason why the 49ers cut him is because they signed somebody who is familiar to the Buccaneers, and that is Logan Ryan, the safety.
Yeah.
So Logan Ryan, who's been sitting at home waiting for a call all season, gets to join the 49ers and have a chance to maybe get a ring with San Francisco if they keep winning the way they are. So
yeah, I was happy to see that for Logan Ryan.
Yeah, good guy.
I thought that good guy, fun to talk to, and I think injuries were the biggest issue for him with the Bucs last season. I think when he was like fully healthy, he was able to make some plays for the Bucs where that secondary's kind of been asking for. I'm not saying, oh, well, the Bucs secondary is a Logan Ryan away from turning into that 2002 defense. But he's kind of going the Ndamukong Suh route of just, I'm going to wait it out, take my time, and then pick a winner when they need me. So, good luck to him.
Exactly. Richard Terruca here with a question, a concern maybe. I'm very conflicted. I want the Bucs to be able to draft a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years, yet I still want them to win. Yeah, so it is kind of interesting, right? I mean, fans want a change. Maybe they don't believe in Todd Bowles being that coach to take this team all the way to the Super Bowl. And quite honestly, if you don't have a coach that you believe, and I'm talking about like ownership here, if you don't have a coach you believe can take your team the whole way and win it all, then you're just treading water, and it is time to maybe move on. But I get that. And listen, I've covered this team since 1995 professionally. I walked in the door with Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks, and Trent Dilfer was already here in the building as a first-round pick back in 1993, I believe. So I've seen Dilfer, right? And of course, before him was Vinny Testaverde. Before him was Doug Williams, right? So there's been some first round draft picks here in Tampa. So you've had Testaverde, you had Dilfer, you've had Josh Freeman, you've had Jameis Winston, right? So there's been plenty of first round picks that have not panned out. None of those guys, actually, no drafted quarterback has received a second contract by the Buccaneers. That's a crazy statistic. Even in the second round, you've got Sean King, right? Mm-hmm. You've got guys like Chris Sims in the 3rd round, Mike Lennon. I've seen the whole gambit, and there hasn't been a drafted quarterback that's really been worth the damn here. It's crazy. The only time this franchise has had success has been with free agents. Yeah. It was Brad Johnson in 2002. It was Brian Griese in 2005 and Jeff Garcia in 2007. These are all division-winning quarterbacks here. And then you've got, obviously, some guy named Tom Brady. He did a pretty good thing in 2020.
Yeah, he was solid.
Yeah, solid, right? So my point is this franchise has got to buck about 40 years of history. Can they do it? Eventually, they will find a guy. I don't know whether I'm going to be covering the Buccaneers by then. I might be dead. But at some point in time, they will hit on a draft pick. And I will say this. They've had the number 1 overall pick, right? And that was Jameis Winston. Didn't pan out. There's been a couple of other guys that have had a lot of success that weren't number 1 overall picks. Patrick Mahomes was picked 10th. Yep. Josh Allen, I think, was 7th or 8th. Lamar Jackson's 32nd. So you can have a quarterback. And this is a year where there's going to be probably 5 or 6 top guys to kind of choose from. Maybe in the first round, maybe some of those guys slip in the second round. But it'll be interesting to see. But we have to all let it play out and see. This team might have a playoff berth before we get to that quarterback. That depends on if they win or not on Monday or on Sunday, Matt.
You know what would be objectively hilarious is if Kyle Trask broke that streak just by the simple possibility of he never plays and then his contract runs out and it's like, hey, you know what, Kyle? Why don't we just re-sign you to a 1-year deal versus very little? There's not many teams out there looking for Kyle Trask because he hasn't played at all. So he's just back on a 1-year deal that's worth nothing. He'll be the third string quarterback. It's like, oh, hey, he broke the record. He was drafted by the Bucs and he re-signed with the Bucs. It's almost like the Ryan Griffin route, where Ryan Griffin's the longest tenured quarterback in Buccaneers history and ever played.
Kyle Trask, 2 games.
Yeah, Kyle Trask might as well break that record. But we got a super chat to get to. Thank you to Bucs Basement for this $5 super chat. Sticking with the topic of quarterbacks, they say Baker saying they seem like a different team is laughable. He played like trash, and the team barely beat a 1-11 team having the same issues as always. We actually have that video, so let's do it. Let's play it.
Since the last time you faced them.
Yeah, we're definitely just a lot better on offense, looking at it detailed-wise, and just understanding of everybody knowing what exactly we're trying to get accomplished. So, the first game was a little hard to watch film-wise, just going back through it and seeing the improvements that we've had. So, but they presented the different issues for us that we had to learn from. Some blitz package issues, and they held us, to a pretty low score. So, we've got to go in and improve, learn off that game plan, but also, them not having Grady Jarrett's a little different. They've had Street come in and play really well for them. So we're both different to a certain extent. So just got to look at the new tape and grow and learn from there.
For you. But is this the game where you're going to have to find another superhero in offense to come alongside Mike and have another great type performance as well?
Yeah, this is one of those games that, obviously he's been the main guy for us. So everybody's got to be ready. Everybody's got to be ready to step up. Not to, harp on your question. Nobody needs to be a superhero, but just do your job consistently. And I think that's one thing that we can look back at the tape from the first Atlanta game is everybody do your job consistently and good things will happen and then the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow we're going to have a podcast with actually, let's put that up first. We'll do that. So tomorrow we've got JP Peterson coming on. And we're going to be talking about that exact topic, the Bucs who must step up in Atlanta. We know that Mike Evans is going to be the guy, right? He always has been. And we know that Antoine Winfield Jr. Is also going to be the guy on defense. The problem is, Matt, is both of those guys played really, really well. Mike had a touchdown to give the Bucs an early lead against the Falcons, if my memory serves me. Winfield was everywhere, forcing fumbles, breaking up passes in the end zone. He was his typical one-man gang. But who else needs to step up? Because just Mike and just Antoine was not enough back in week 7. So we're going to be talking with JP Peterson tomorrow at 4:00 about who needs to step up, which players. And that guy right there, number 94, might be one of those guys we talk about. And then speaking of talking about Bucs Falcons, on Sunday at noon, Pewter Game Day is back in action, where we're going to be having a preview of the show to come that is at 1 o'clock kickoff, Bucs and Falcons in Atlanta. Make sure you join us, presented by Celsius, the Pewter Game Day Show. The live pregame starts at noon, followed by 3 hours of Matt Matera analysis and brilliant analysis as you guys enjoy the game with Matt. And that's at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I think the reactions are the funnest part, whether they're good, bad, ugly, beautiful. Usually, of course, we like the good and the beautiful part a lot more. But it's always fun with the Pewter people each week. So looking forward to another one, especially this one, which, as we said, is the most important game of the season. It's a playoff game as well. I want to get back to Bucs Basement super chat though as well. And we all just watched the video. Baker's clearly talking about that he feels the offense has gotten better since they played Atlanta, and Bucs Basement is calling it laughable. And I don't necessarily know if it's laughable, because if you look at that time when the Bucs played the Falcons, the week before, they didn't even score a touchdown. They only scored 6 against the Lions.
That's right.
And then they, again, 13 points against the Falcons, 18 points against the Bills. And, a lot of that came late in the game when they were trying to do that Hail Mary. But after that, offensively, I do think that they improved, maybe not to the amount that we all want and we all expect, but then they dropped 37 against the Texans. They scored 20 against the Titans, where the Bucs defense controlled that game, and the Bucs offense knew, all right, let's just not make any stupid mistakes and we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Now, the 14 against the 49ers, again, does not tell the whole story, because they were in the red zone twice. They had to go for it on 4th down just because they were trailing so far behind, because the defense was allowing a lot of points. And then they scored 20 against Indy and then 21 against Carolina last week. So I do think the offense has improved. The running game certainly has
big time
gotten better. And going in, I mean, let's remember, let's kind of revert back a little bit. A lot of what we talked about, Scott, this is something big that you would always bring up, is that last season's Bucs team was averaging, 17.5, 18.5 points per game. And it was like, if the Bucs could just get to that 20-point range,
right,
they would be a much better team. Now, we all didn't expect the Bucs defense to kind of regress like it has this season to a degree. But if we go by those standards that we had in the beginning of the season, at least from when they fell against Atlanta and, after they lost the Thursday night game against Buffalo. So we're talking about from November 5th, when they lost to the Texans in that debacle, which was on the defense, since November 5th all the way to December 3rd. So essentially a month from now, they're getting right around that 20-point per game range that we wanted from them at the start of the season. So it's improvements. It's not, the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs with Tyreek Hill a couple of seasons ago. It's not the high-flying offense that people want, but there is incremental improvement. And I think even though it's not as flashy, you just kind of got to stay the course, because this team is working on something.
I think the biggest thing that you just hit on there, Matt, is the running game improvement, right? Because you go back and look at the statistics from that 16-13 loss to the Falcons at Raymond James Stadium back in Week 7. The Bucs ran for just 73 yards in that game. And remember, 31 of those came on a late scramble from Baker Mayfield. So that's a huge chunk right there. And sometimes, you need those chunks, right? We saw a 38-yard run by Rachaad White against the Colts that gave him 100 yards in that game, right? I mean, those yards count. Like that, even though it's one big chunk, I mean, that's what's been missing from the Bucs running attack earlier in the season. Now they're getting some of those. We saw a big chunk play of over 20 yards from Rachaad to kind of salt away that win against the Panthers on the last drive. So those are good to see. But if you go back and look at that 73 yards, Rachaad only had 13 carries for 34 yards in that game. Now, he did have 6 catches for 65 yards, so he went over 100 yards collectively. But the Falcons do a pretty good job, as Todd Bowles said today, of taking away the run just with their base defense, because they are very stout up front. They're very physical up front. They don't have Grady Jarrett in this game. He's out with the injury, but they do have David Onyemata, who's a hell of a defensive tackle coming over from the Saints. They've got Calais Campbell, who gave Luke Gedeke some fits in the last game. So we'll see how they do it. Remember, Matt Filer was in the lineup then, and even
also true.
Even today, Todd Bowles said that Aaron Stinney, has been better right at the left guard position. So you look at Rachaad White, 100 yards 2 weeks ago, 84 yards on Sunday. He's putting up some numbers on the ground that we hadn't seen from him earlier in the season. And I think that might bode well just from a confidence standpoint going in there and trying to establish the run against the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what this running game can bring, not just on Sunday, but for the rest of the season, because the players have been saying for a long time, it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. Something that we've talked about on this show as well, Scott, is that it's very, very difficult to practice running the football because there's no contact that goes on during training camp, and you can really only get it in the preseason and when the regular season gets going. And when you have the new offense and you have new pieces, including a rookie and a guy that you just brought in with Filer, and then obviously make the change to Stinney, we're seeing that chemistry, that gelling of the offense coming together, at least in the ground game. And then Dave Canales has asked since day one to run the ball. And once they really get that ground game going is when you're going to see everything else that you've ever wanted to see from the Buccaneers offense. So,
and you know what? It's not just the left guard that's switched out, right? With Stinney in there for Matt Filer now since the Bucs and Falcons last played. It's also Payne Durham has taken over that number 2 tight end role ahead of Kieft and also ahead of David Wells, who, remember, had a big fumble in that game and pretty much cost him a shot for more playing time. So we've seen kind of the emergence of Payne Durham. He's getting better as a blocker. Had a great block, kind of a kick-out block, if you will, on Brian Burns in that game. You can check out Josh Capo's X feed for that clip. So whether it's that or whether it's the catch above his head that probably should have been a touchdown, had Todd Bowles reviewed it in Indy, this is a guy that's coming on too. And when we say the running game, the offensive line has actually done a pretty good job. Sometimes it's the tight end position that has let down Tampa Bay's ground game by not holding up their blocks. But I think we've seen a little bit of improvement from Cade Otton. We've seen Payne Durham be a better number 2 than either Kieft or David Wells, and he probably provides a little bit more, punch in the passing game as well. So they're doing a better job collectively. They also have a little bit of different talent in there than when they faced Atlanta the first time. And let's face it, Rachaad White is just running way more confident now. He's hitting the holes, no hesitation. You're not seeing that kind of, dancing behind the line of scrimmage. There's more rhythm. Cody Mauch and Luke Gedeke on that right side of the offensive line have really formed a 1-2 punch there, and they've got some real rhythm. So I think, so far so good for Tampa Bay's run game. This will be a really good test because not only do the Falcons do a good job of running the ball, they do a really good job of stopping the run as well.
You're 1,000% right. Todd Bowles. Rachaad White doesn't even look like the running back he was in the first 2 months of the season. Yeah. He is a completely different player. And I don't know what exactly made the switch flip. Maybe it was just him kind of dominating and getting it done in the passing game that is translated over to the running game. Yeah. Maybe it's the fact that the offensive line has picked it up a little bit. Shout out to Josh Capo as well for all of his film breakdown. He was one of the first guys to identify that Cade Otton was a liability in the run blocking game. And now with the insertion of Payne Durham, it's obviously picked it up a fair amount. So, there are a couple things that you could point to for the Bucs run game improving a great deal. But we got a couple super chats to get to. Thank you to Meets McGee for this $5 super chat, who says, Doug Williams would have gotten a second contract, but Culverhouse didn't want him, severely lowballed him. That's Doug Williams curse.
Yep. It was a real thing for a minute here that forced him to go to the USFL. I think he played for the Houston Gamblers, if I'm not mistaken, and then had success, obviously, with the Washington Redskins, winning the Super Bowl there and becoming the MVP. Broke a lot of barriers in terms of race, quarterback position. And so really beloved by two franchises, Washington and Tampa Bay. They both shared that guy in terms of his legacy because he's meant so much to both franchises.
Yeah, it was actually cool to see the other day. Bert Kreischer, the famous comedian that obviously is from Tampa as well, he teamed up with the Bucs. I believe they're doing something for Habitat for Humanity where they're raising money to build homes in the Hillsborough community. So Bert Kreischer shot a video, and he brought Doug Williams into the video as well, which was super cool. One thing I will say is I wish this product was around when there was negotiations going on with Doug Williams, because I would have thrown as much of this product as possible at Doug Williams, and he probably would have re-signed with the Bucs. Of course, I'm talking about Celsius Energy Drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. There's so many awesome flavors that you can get over at Celsius. The Cosmic Vibe is their newest one. My personal favorite is the Arctic Vibe. There's a lot more great ones: the sparkling orange, the sparkling wild berry, the strawberry lemonade, the strawberry, the strawberry Kai, the sparkling wild berry, sparkling watermelon, tropical vibe. The vibes are always high on the show. There's so many great flavors to choose from. There's no sugar. There's no post-energy drink crash or jitters that you might get with another product out there. So if you haven't had Celsius before and you want to try it for the first time, maybe this Oasis vibe, don't worry. Just go to the Celsius store locator, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest geographical location where you could pick one up. It could be a Walmart, 7-Eleven, health and fitness store, or, Scott, what could it be?
Yaya Diaby. Sorry, wrong voice. Bodega.
And once you go to your bodega, where hopefully, if you're in the Tampa area, maybe you'll run into Yaya Diaby. And you know that you love Celsius and you want more of it, you can get more of it. You can get it in bulk. I'd recommend getting the variety packs of Varieties of Spice of Life. You just go over to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save, and you can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. You're the captain. It could be a week, month, quarterly, yearly. Up to you. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks. Make Celsius your number one pick. Celsius, the official energy drink of Pewter Report.
We just got the injury report, Matt.
Okay.
Let's go over the injury report here because there's some big news. And if you are a loyal pewterreport.com reader, you found out yesterday what you're going to hear today, that's kind of what we try to do. We try to look into the future here and prep you Pewter people for the Pewter possibilities in the future.
This is quite the list. So starting out, of course, with the Buccaneers, KJ Britt with the back, limited in participation. Levante David groin, full participation. We knew that was coming from Todd Bowles today.
Yep.
Jamel Dean, ankle foot, did not participate. Sarase Dennis, this was the other one that Todd Bowles told us about. Illness, full participation. Robert Hainsey, I guess both of his knees are jacked up because it says knee/knee.
Right.
Limited participation. Josh Hayes, illness, did not participate. Cody Mauk, foot, limited in participation. J.J. Russell, for personal reasons, did not participate today. Vita Vea, toe, did not participate. Devin White, foot, did not participate. And Tristan Wirfs, ankle/back, limited participation. Then we'll roll through the Falcons real quick. Calais Campbell did not participate. Drew Dahlman did not participate. Wide receiver Matt Collins fully participated. Mike Hughes, full participation. Nate Landman did not participate. LaCale London fully participated. Offensive lineman Caleb McGarry did not participate. Cornerback Jeff Okuda, limited. Defensive lineman David Onyemata did not participate with an ankle injury. Running back / wide receiver Cordell Patterson did not participate. He just had a rest day. And then A.J. Terrell, cornerback, was limited today. He is in concussion protocol.
Yeah. So let's go over some of these because these are really important for this game coming up here. It's part of the preview is who's going to play and who's not, right? So we found that out last Sunday for the Buccaneers. They didn't have a lot of linebackers, right? So let's start with the Falcons because Matt just read that there. Some of the key names there, obviously, Calais Campbell rest, he's going to play, et cetera. But Drew Dahlman, the center, with an ankle did not participate. That bears watching, as well as Caleb McGarry, the offensive tackle, the right tackle. He did not participate due to a knee. So, listen, it's, what are we at? Week 14, Matt? Week 14, is that right?
Week 14.
Okay. Yeah, so, we're in December. Like, there's nobody that's 100% or even close. Everybody's banged up right now.
Yeah.
And so sometimes on Wednesdays, you're going to see guys not participate. Then it's limited on Thursday. Then it's limited or full on Friday. And then they end up playing on Sunday the entire game. That's just how it is. A.J. Terrell did miss the Jets game or part of it, right? Didn't he get the concussion in the Jets game? I believe he did. Either that or he missed it.
Yeah.
But he's coming out of concussion protocol. From what I'm understanding, he is trending upward. The limited participation today was a good sign for him. He and Mike Evans have had some battles, right? I think Mike has won most of those battles, but they like to go man coverage, mano a mano in these. And there's some times where A.J. Terrell wins and Mike didn't get the ball, but at the same time, Mike Evans has had a lot of success against the Falcons because of their penchant for playing in man coverage. So I think those are the key injuries right there. Also, David Onyemata, the defensive tackle, with that ankle, not participating. Those are going to be worth sticking around for tomorrow's podcast to find out what the latest is with the Falcons, because we'll know more tomorrow. Today's Bucs practice was a walkthrough.
It was.
And if you read the story that I put up yesterday, the expectation is, and we knew this yesterday, Lavonte David and Servassier Dennis will be the starters on Sunday if everything goes according to plan. And right now, those guys were full participants, so those two will be the starters. J.J. Russell might be the next guy coming off the bench. Don't expect Devin White to be ready to play. Probably a good thing, if I'm just being honest. Then people think I'm a Devin basher. I'm not. I just call it the way I see it. I think if Devin White plays, it hurts the Bucs' chances of winning, to be honest, because he was terrible against the Falcons back in Week 7. He's not good against the run. He's like, I think, the second worst linebacker in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus, and he might have the worst run defense grade of any linebacker. Okay, so that's just not me. That's Pro Football Focus's grade as well. So we're expecting David and Dennis to be the starting linebackers. This will be an interesting combination. If David re-signs, Matt, and if Dennis continues to kind of show some things in the send, this pairing might be your starting linebackers for next year.
Yeah, we are taking a little bit of a glimpse into the future with Lavonte David and Servassier Dennis. And it will be very interesting to see as well, because Servassier got the nod, obviously, when Lavonte was out, when they went up against the Colts, and they weren't great at stopping the run. But now you bring in Lavonte David, and as we talked about 1,000s upon thousands times on the show, Lavonte cleans everything up for Devin White. Lavonte can clean some stuff up for Servassier Dennis, but if Lavonte doesn't have to clean as much stuff for Servassier Dennis compared to what he has to do for Devin on a weekly basis, that can actually shore up a lot of stuff with stopping the run against Atlanta, which they know they are going to want to do against the Bucs. Now, as far as like coverage wise with Servassier Dennis, I still think the jury is still very much out on that. Let's remember, this was months and months and months ago, but he started out fantastic in coverage. He had an interception in rookie minicamp, then minicamp, and I think early into training camp as well. Yeah. Now that's training camp. Who cares about that now? We're in December of the regular season. But
it's just uncommon to see any particular player at any position have 4 pick sixes in practice over one off season. I mean, I've never seen that before from anybody. Derek Brooks.
It was pretty wild for sure. And then you get J.J. Russell in the mix as a backup, and we'll see what's up with KJ Britt. So I think really the moral of the story is Lavonte David's back. Be happy, everybody, because anytime Lavonte is in the lineup, your defense is much, much better than it is without him. Let's get to the super chat from Kathy Gillespie. Thank you, Kathy, for the $4.99 super chat. Your thoughts on Baker's ankle? We all know textures to be tough. Doesn't look quite the same, in my opinion. Well, the good news is that he's not on the injury report, so there's no concerns anymore about whether or not he can play. Obviously, it was very, very painful in the moment. Baker plays through pain pretty well. I mean, I think everyone remembers when he took that shot against the Saints on the touchdown to Cade Otton, and he was still able to go. By no means is he 100%. We kind of already talked about that with everyone else, but I don't think it will limit his thought about having to scramble if he needs to. Now, we did have a really bad game, but I'm going to chalk that up to the rain and everything more than than his ankle forcing him to play poorly. But if he has another bad game, I think it might be time to question that ankle injury, among other things.
The interesting thing is he's not on the injury report, right, with that ankle. So, I mean, he's a full participant in practice, so that's a good sign. When we see him at the facility, he's not wearing any wraps. He doesn't have any type of brace on it, whatever. So I think it's sore. I think it's going to continue to be sore for weeks. My daughter Jillian, who's a cheerleader at Sun Lake High School, she had a bad ankle sprain, and she's like, when is this gonna feel better? She's not wearing a brace unless she's doing running or something, right? But just walking through the halls of school, she's like, when is this going to feel better? I'm like, welcome to being an athlete. It's going to take months for that ankle to really heal because she sprained it really good. And same thing happened to Baker. So it just takes time. And the more you walk on it, like the longer it takes, it just even things like that. So with him having practices and games every week, it's not going to be till the offseason until it heals. You just hope that he doesn't really tweak it again, and then it causes him to miss time.
By the way, this is a quick side note, but it does impact the Bucs a little bit because they play them in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. I could not believe when Trevor Lawrence got injured in the Monday night game, they showed him in the locker room, like slowly walking. Yeah. Get the dude a cart and bring him to the back. Like, why did him walk like clearly very, very far? I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. But when we're talking about the ankle here and staying off of it, I don't know. I couldn't help but think about that. And it does affect the Bucs because that makes it a much different game if Trevor Lawrence isn't able to go.
Yeah. Also, Christian Kirk, his leading receiver, is going to have surgery, I think, for his core muscle. So, boy, the Jaguars all of a sudden offensively, without Trevor Lawrence and without Christian Kirk, you don't want to look too far ahead because after this game, the Bucs got to go up to Green Bay. And
Jordan Love now is fantastic.
He is playing really, really well, right? And Matt LaFleur is undefeated up there in December, so we'll see.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get off topic, but it popped into my head.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you. Eric Moreno, thank you for this $5 super chat, who said, I saw Vita at practice from the pictures you guys posted. Any concern for Vita? Yeah, I mean, he was out there, but like so was Devin White, so were a number of guys. That's what happens when it's walkthroughs. Everyone can kind of be out there. Here's what I'll say about Vita. I mean, there are times he doesn't practice at all, and then he comes out on Friday, and then he ends up playing in the game. Then the Buffalo game, and granted, again, it was a walkthrough because it was a Thursday night game, but he was there the whole time and then didn't play in the Thursday night game. So, Eric, I wish I had a better answer for you. It's one of those things. It's not. Angle says they are in Florida and they don't have a golf cart. How?
Yeah.
But Eric, I wish I had a better answer for you. It's going to be one of those things. It's really going to come down to probably Friday more than anything else. Yeah, Thursday, if he's out there and he's limited, clearly he'll be trending in the right direction. But we do have a super chat from Easy the Great. Thank you for the $1.99 super chat, who says, we needed Levante David healthy for this game in a bad way. If there was any game for Levante to return to, it's this one. Because it's essentially the Bucs season. Yeah, they're still kind of in the wild card race, but it's always been about winning the division. So maybe they kept out Levante last week. I don't know. I mean, they were so down with inside linebackers that they probably would have played him even if he was at 50%. But they're going to need him. There's no doubt about it.
Joel says Dennis needs these reps. I think he'll be much better in coverage. Well, he's going to have to be because either Levante David or you're going to have Sebastian Dennis in coverage against Bijan Robinson, who has 3 touchdown receptions this year to go along with 3 touchdowns on the ground. And when you look at what Bijan has been able to do, and I saw this firsthand at Texas, I was so glad he got it at Big 12 because he destroyed my Kansas State Wildcats a couple years in a row. And we usually have a pretty decent defense, but this guy was just such a huge X factor. Bijan's got 756 yards rushing, 4.8 on the ground, 3 touchdowns. Remember, he played sparingly against the Buccaneers because he had some kind of mystery illness, wasn't feeling well, whatever, in that game. And they didn't need him because Tyler Algier ran for over 100 yards against Tampa Bay. But as a receiver, he's, you look at the Falcons, it's not just Drake London, who has 573 yards and a pair of touchdowns, or the tight ends, Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith. Both of those guys have over 400 yards receiving and a couple of touchdowns. Bijan Robinson is that number 4 receiver for the Falcons. He's got 35 catches for 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. So a lot of production in the passing game, kind of like Rachaad White in that respect, but he's just a more natural, better, pure runner than Rachaad. And, he's dangerous. He really is.
Yeah, sorry, Bucs fans, but as a fan of the game, I'm excited to see Bijan Robinson because we see highlights and stuff, but he didn't play in that last game against the Buccaneers.
Yep.
I'm excited to see what he'll do against the Bucs defense. We have a $2 super chat from Man Easterling. thank you for the $2 super chat. Any relation to Luke Easterling? Please let us know. Thank you for the super chat. If you got another comment, we're happy to put it up on the screen. And Eric Moreno, thank you for this super chat of $2 as well. Says Vita is not missing this game versus the Falcons. Yeah, I mean, if I were going to bet on it, I would probably say Vita would play. I mean, he's a team captain. This is the biggest game of the season. It's a game that they got to have. So I would probably more than likely say Vita would play. But you never know, like, how serious all of these injuries are. If Vita does play and you think he might have higher or lower on a number of different stats in the game, you could pick Vita Vea over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is so much fun to play. I got Pewter Picks and Props that comes out each Friday where I make my Underdog Fantasy picks along with other gambling picks as well for the Bucs game and other NFL games as well. But really all you're doing is picking the higher or lower on a number of stats. Could be receiving yards, interceptions, rushing yards, tackles, stuff for the kickers as well. You got to pick at least 2 different teams. So, you could pick one player from the Bucs, one player from the Falcons. You can go all the way up to 5 players and win up to 20 times your money. Just use the promo code Pewter, PEWTER, when you sign up with Underdog Fantasy and get a first deposit bonus when you play the game. They have a lot of fun in-season tournaments. The Rivals is a lot of fun. And, of course, it's always a great time using the pick'ems over at Underdog Fantasy. They have it for multiple sports. They have it for every football game. So if you're watching other games out there and you're like, I'm not that interested, just throw a little cash on Underdog Fantasy and make the viewing experience that much better. One more time, use the promo code Pewter, PEWTER. That's a promo code, and get a first deposit bonus with Underdog Fantasy. Man Easterling says, just looking ahead, I would not play Devin White again as a Buck. I think his efforts are unpardonable. Having said that, this upcoming free agent inside linebacker group as well. Patrick Queen.
Yeah, I mean, Queen's a good linebacker for the Ravens. They already have Roquan Smith, so are they going to invest big money into 2 inside linebackers? That's where it gets dicey because can you afford to? Just like, can the Bucs afford Mike and Chris? Right, both at $20 million or more next year? It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I think Levante David, he will definitely get a 1-year contract offer from Tampa Bay, I think, after this season, if he wants to continue to play. There's no doubt. But there's not a huge market, or I should say there's not a huge amount of linebackers on the free agent market. You've got Devin White, obviously, who's not going to be back. Josie Jewell, who's getting up there in age a little bit with the Denver Broncos. Jordan Hicks, these guys are like, Jewell's 29, Hicks is 32. Bobby Wagner, of course, is still out there. He's really on the downside of his career at 33. I think Levante still has a couple of decent years left in him from an athleticism standpoint. Willie Gay from Kansas City was a player I liked coming out of Mississippi State. He's kind of been a little, hit or miss as a consistent linebacker. It's not a huge group in terms of big names. Shaquille Leonard obviously was let go, but he's lost a step due to some injuries. Signed with the Eagles, right? So, the Bucs, they're going to use, I think, the rest of these games. Take a look at Servassier Dennis, maybe take a look at J.J. Russell, and see if they have some of these guys on the roster that can step in and play. You don't have to be a first-round draft pick to be a good linebacker. I mean, Devin White was a first-rounder. Levante Davis was a second-rounder. Fred Warner was a third-rounder, if memory serves. Dre Greenlaw was a fifth-rounder out of Arkansas. So maybe the Bucs have 1 or 2 of these guys that are starting caliber players already on this roster that they can pair with Levante David if he comes back next year. So we'll see.
Yeah, you don't know until you give him a shot. And, that's kind of the big thing. And the Bucs have had their history of finding players in the rough. Maybe Servassier Dennis is the next one.
Yep. Well, what I do know is if you're looking for a realtor, the guy that you need to get is Eric Gross. whether you sign him, whether you draft him, whether you acquire him in a trade. Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group, the official Realtor Pewter Report, is the expert when it comes to the real estate market here. Why? Because Eric is a Tampa native. His father was stationed at MacDill Air Force Base. He is a huge Tampa Bay fan and avid Pewter Report reader. And the thing is he doesn't treat his clients like transactions. They're lifelong friendships. And that's so important because you got to remember your home is your biggest investment. So, and it's not just a house, folks, it's a home, which means you got to find the right house in the right neighborhood. That's what makes it a home. And that's where Eric and his team, they come to play every day. The Eric Gross Group, they've done hundreds of transactions in this crazy real estate market. They've got experience in all types of situations, whether you're buying or selling your home. Give Eric Gross a call. I guarantee you, you're not going to be disappointed. This guy is a top-notch human being, and he knows the real estate market inside and out. But don't believe me. Check out his website, housesinfla.com, and let that impress you. Check out their inventory. It's a great website with a fantastic layout, housesinfla.com. You can also follow Eric and the Eric Gross Group on Facebook and Instagram at Eric Gross Group, or give Eric a call at 513-907-4271. No matter where you are in your home ownership journey, you're going to feel welcome at the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report. Again, visit housesinfla.com.
Let's get to a couple videos from the facility today. This first one is Todd Bowles just kind of talking about the next opponent with the Falcons, talks a little bit about Desmond Ridder, some about the defense as well.
Well, it's a division rival, so I think all three are difficult, but, Arthur does a great job playing ball control, yet getting explosive plays. I think their defense is playing very well. They're playing like top 5 defense in the league right now, and defensively we gave up 2 minutes at the end, and offensively I thought they stalled us pretty good.
What have you seen out of Desmond Ridder now that he's had a little bit more time?
Well, he's got control of the offense. He knows where to go with the ball. He's always dangerous with his feet. I think he's very underrated, but he's a very accurate passer.
Emphasis on it this week, given that Atlanta really they lean on that heavily.
Well, you try to too much in the run game, they're going to burn you in the pass game. They got a lot of weapons on the outside, so we got to play balanced football, and we got to play honest football. Everybody's got to do their part.
You view this as a playoff game?
Every game we play from here on out is a playoff game.
That last game against the Falcons, Bijan Robinson wasn't a factor. He hardly played. So how much do you have to account for him this time around?
We can stop him full time if he doesn't play. But other than that, he's been playing quite a bit. He's at full tilt. Looks like he's at Texas. He's running the ball well. He's catching the ball well. He's a route runner. He can do a lot of things.
And then, of course, another marquee, not necessarily matchup because they don't play against each other, but there's 2 great safeties in this game between Jesse Bates and, of course, the Bucs' own Antoine Winfield Jr. So, Scott, you had asked Todd Bowles about kind of both of those safeties, and, of course, for Baker Mayfield, having to play against Jesse Bates and what that entails.
Then Antoine Winfield Jr. and Jesse Bates.
I haven't seen Jesse too much. I know him from his past. He's always been a great safety, and the way Wynn's playing right now, I haven't seen him any better. I haven't watched every team and every game, but I'll take him up against everybody.
That play to close out the game for you guys from Antoine Winfield, just how big was that for him to make that when he needed to make it?
Oh, it was huge because it closed out the game, like you said. I just stated we hadn't closed it out before in 2 minutes, so to come back and close that out was big for us.
These in the game, right? I mean, Winfield on your team, obviously, but what Bates has been able to do in his first season in Atlanta. Can you just speak to that and how dangerous he is? You got to kind of avoid him at all costs.
Yeah, he's. I know I mentioned this the first time we came around. I played him a bunch of times when he was in Cincinnati. Extremely smart player, obviously athletic, but extremely smart. Knows how to pattern read. Knows how to get everybody else lined up, and just always seems to be around the ball, making plays on it. So he's one of those guys you got to know where he's at all times. When you're going through your progression, he's going to be reading your eyes. So have to be smart when you're moving through the field.
You look at this as the game of the year for you guys because of the impact it can have on obviously your chances for the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it, but the one game at a time mentality, they're obviously leading the division, so it's divisional games are already important, but obviously where we're at right now, extremely important for us, and just got to be singular focus on any way we can beat the Falcons. Got to find a way.
Yeah, when you look at Jesse Bates, what he's been able to do this year, I mean, folks, as much as we love and adore Antoine Winfield Jr. here in Tampa, if we're being honest, if he has an equal, it is Jesse Bates. Bates leads his team in tackles, 92. Winfield has 89 by comparison. Bates has 7 pass breakups, 5 interceptions, 5, including a pick 6, and 3 forced fumbles. So he is basically the taller version of Antoine Winfield in Atlanta, just having a powerhouse year. This is going to be fun if you like defense to watch both these safeties go at it for their respective teams. They're both playmakers, and they're both having fantastic seasons. When you look at the Falcons defensively, they still don't pick off a lot of passes, Matt. That was the case back in week 7. You did see, I believe it was Richie Grant picked off Baker Mayfield. That was his only interception. They only have 7 picks all year, and that was one of them, the Richie Grant interception over the Kate Otten on that interception. So Atlanta does not do a good job of picking off passes. They only have 7 this year. Bates has 5 of those, so Baker's got to avoid Bates at all costs. And then, just like Tampa Bay, they kind of collect sacks as a collective, as a unit. Same thing in Atlanta. They don't have that one breakaway guy, and Tampa Bay really hasn't had that since Shaq Barrett was doing his thing with double-digit sacks. So Arnold Ebiketie, 5.5 sacks. One of their edge rushers, Bud Dupree, the other one has 5. David Onyemata in the middle, 3.5. Old man Calais Campbell's got 3 himself. Lorenzo Carter, another edge rusher, he's got a pair of sacks. Nate Landman's got a couple. Caden Ellis, who's a very good linebacker, he's got a pair of sacks as well. Grady Jarrett, they're missing his presence inside. He had 1.5 sacks before he left due to injury, and then Richie Grant from the secondary. So they have some playmakers in Atlanta. They just play really good team defense. They just have a good, sound defensive scheme, and those players play well together. It's a good collective unit. The only real superstar on this Falcons team, as I see it defensively, is Bates, and he is their Antoine Winfield Jr. He's the one-man gang, and he didn't have a huge game in Tampa the last time. Certainly AWJ outshined him with all of the big plays that he made. But keep your eye on Bates and Antoine. It's going to be fun watching these safeties play on Sunday.
By the way, congratulations to Antoine Winfield Jr. A great week of accolades for him. Yeah. He was he was the Bucs representative and nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award.
That's right.
Which is super, super cool. Every single team, all 32 NFL teams, get one player from their team nominated, and Winfield is the one representing the Bucs. He joins Mike Evans from 2019 through 2021 and Will Golston last season in 2022. Now Antoine this year in 2023 as current Bucs on the roster who have been nominated for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. So good luck to him. Hopefully he can win it. And then today it was announced that he was named as the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. So another great outing for Antoine Winfield Jr. Had a sack, had an interception. Obviously was a big reason why the Bucs
led the
won.
team in tackles. No
yeah, led the team in tackles. So, both of these safeties just do it all, really.
And you know what? The interesting thing is Levante David. Now he missed last game, right, with the injury. Actually missed two games, but he's got 90 tackles. Antoine is the second leading tackler with 89. So he's like right there, neck for neck with Levante for the tackle leaders. We know Antoine Winfield is going to step up. He always does.
Yes.
We know Mike Evans is going to step up. He always does. It's been the case all year for these two Pewter players. But who is going to step up beside them? Because they weren't enough to beat the Falcons back in week 7. It's going to take another guy in offense, another guy in defense. We're going to debate who that player is on both sides of the ball with J.P. Peterson, who's going to be our guest tomorrow. JP's covered the Buccaneers for a long time here in Tampa and also spent some years up in Atlanta in the Falcons market. So he's got experience on both sides of the fence here. So that's tomorrow's show at 4 o'clock. Myself, Matt Matera, Adam Slavon, and JP Peterson will all be talking more Bucs Falcons as this big game, Matt. We need to talk more about it. It's that big.
Yeah, it's super, super important. Very excited to have JP Peterson on tomorrow's show. He's a great guy. Both Scott and I have been on his show as well, so to do a little cross-branding promotion with him over on our podcast tomorrow at 4 p.m. But in the meantime, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. That's at Pewter Report. And, of course, our YouTube channel, Pewter Report TV, where we have the podcast, Pewter Game Day Show, and various other clips. We'll also have the Pewter Game Day Show coming up on Sunday, starting at noon, and then the in-game reactions and everything else and the opinions coming up at 1 o'clock. So that's going to do it for us. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.